You probably have heard of the Vikings. Most people associate them with wanton warriors, traveling in ships with horned helmets. Today, I'm going to blow those ideals out of the water. This is Levi from Dim's World. Let's set sail. Firstly, the term Viking is incorrect. Not all Norse peoples were Vikings. The Norse peoples lived in what is now called Scandinavia. Scandinavia includes modern-day countries such as Denmark, Norway, Sweden, as well as portions of Finland. Scandinavia was the main residence of the Norse peoples, but they also extended into Russia, Iceland, parts of the British Isles, Greenland, and even parts of Canada. Viking is a term referring to a man that went on explorations, what they called Vik, which is where we get the word Viking. The Norsemen had made several technological advancements, some of which including the longship, battle axes, as well as other many crafts made out of iron. The true Vikings had explored all throughout the Mediterranean and even reached Arabia through the rivers of Russia, thus leading to a connection to the Silk Road and therefore China. There are even some outlandish claims that they had reached Australia. But besides the point of where they went and where they had not, then wherever they went, they left an impact, some good, some bad. The emperors of Byzantine actually enlisted the dislocated Norsemen that lived in Russia, and thus more legends came about how strong warriors there were, and which is where we get the distortion of them being bloodthirsty savages that we now think of. And their myths, which are still around today, actually were still relevant after Christianity had taken over. Usually after the expeditions, the retired warrior would go back to his little farm or his respective trade, but if the occasion ever arose, they would fight as a warrior again. Unfortunately, not much was written in the time of the Norse peoples. There was a writing system based off of runes. The main three we know of are the Elder Futhark, the Younger Futhark, and the Anglo-Saxon subset of the Futhark. The Elder Futhark had 24 runes, the Younger Futhark had 16, and the Anglo-Saxon variant had 38 characters. The runes are not like the English alphabet, because the runes could have been different depending on the context and situation. Not only that, but they could also represent sounds such as th, sh, and k. And also, they could also sometimes represent certain types of concepts and other things such as their gods. The people who would eventually become the Norsemen most likely entered at the end of the last ice age from 8000 to 4000 BC. The original settlers would have been semi-nomadic peoples who soon shifted to farming and shepherding. The Bronze Age started in Scandinavia around 2000 to 1500 BC, and this allowed for them to handle bigger populations, but it came at the cost of having to trade for it, thus leading into the Iron Age around 1000 years later. The Iron Age was much better because they could make better tools and again sustain larger populations, and the bigger plus side of being they did not have to trade for it, seeing as it was more common in where they lived. On to spoken language. The original settlers would have spoken a Germanic tongue, but by 750 AD they had shifted over to Dansk-Tungska, also known as Danish tongue. Though it was called the same thing, if you went to a different territory, their version of language would be virtually completely different. Swedish Norsemen and Irish Norsemen spoke practically two different languages. And this got further distorted by the migration era. During the migration period, the Huns pushed into Eastern Europe, and the people who lived there headed northwest, thus pushing Germanic peoples into Scandinavia. And this pushes us into the Vendel period, which is when the upper echelons of the Norse society started to emerge. They started importing horses from the Franks, and they also started making new forms of transportation such as longboats, and these longboats enabled them to have long-distance journeys, and thus they started conquering the British Isles, and through that's what helped them reach to Arabia. What happened to the Norsemen? The Viking Age extended into Britain's upbringing, battling against the Saxons for the control of Britain. In 1066 AD, there was the Battle of Hastings, and the Norsemen were driven out pretty much completely from the British Isles. And soon the culture that we now associate with the Vikings soon collapsed because of Christianity. All in all, the Viking Age and the Norse peoples are a very interesting topic. And as I bid you adieu, I say to thee, history is important. Levi out.